Melissa, you are engaging with an exciting new but potentially terrifying new adventure toward a new position in the hospitality industry. On the operations side of the fence. I mean, okay, during last week's episode, we talked about how you love to have a strategy, and a big part of that strategy is having a vision. What is your vision of your perfect job so that we can help you find the opportunity to get that perfect job?
Right. So as I was starting my job search, I really wanted to make sure, especially at this point in time, I've had so much time building my career over the years that now I really want to do exactly what I want to do. So it's time to step out and be a general manager of a resort. For many, many years, I was on the corporate end of things, which I still love that. But I'm very excited for the opportunities that are out there to lead a team of people, to lead a team of young leaders and help develop those directors, managers, supervisors, and instill that brand into an operations end of things. So that's kind of what I'm looking for. For a while, it took me a while to kind of say, yeah, that's where I think I want to be. I think the other thing that's important is I don't necessarily want something that's stagnant, right? So growth is very, very important for me. I love entrepreneurial startups. So even the family-owned resort company or entertainment company that is growing and maybe needs that brand structure, similar to how when I started out at my last position, it was a small resort, 117 rooms, 100 employees. They didn't have structure. They didn't know really where they were going with things. To be able to go in and create that, that's really what I'm looking for. So not necessarily a company that's completely got it all together. Somebody that needs that help and assistance so that we can kind of build together as a team. So it's kind of what I'm looking for.
Very cool. One of the structure analogies that I use a lot when talking to people is the idea that every company, no matter what style, requires generals, colonels, and sergeants. And what I mean by that is that generals are pure strategy. You know, typically your C-level, I would call the generals, the 5-star generals. The colonel level, often the directors or managers of whatever, those are the colonels that are 50% head, 50% hands. Meaning they got to get their hands dirty on occasion. Like if someone doesn't show up for work and there's a position vacant, those colonels are going to go in and start washing dishes or welcoming guests at the front desk because the guest experience can't suffer.
Right.
And therefore, the colonel is actually going in and fighting the battle moving forward. And then there are the sergeants who are pure hands, but require a little bit of strategic know-how too, or strategic understanding. They don't have to know the big picture, but they need to know enough of the picture so that they can strategically guide their smaller units, their platoons or whatever, to actually get the stuff done. So it sounds to me what you're talking about is you want to be a colonel, maybe a colonel with some stars, some general stars on there as well.
That sounds good.
Because, you want to be strategic and visionary, but you also want to be walking around with the walkie-talkie saying, hey, listen, we need more towels on the pool deck.
Right. Well, maybe not that, but
okay. But if you have to be.
If necessary. Right.
So
right,
using
exactly.
So using that analogy, generals, colonels, and sergeants, what rank do you really aspire to?
Well, it's interesting because in my former life, I was more in that as colonel, right?
Right.
I was more in, it's like, there's some general components to it there of the strategy and planning, but even opening all of those resorts, it was not uncommon to find me on the back of a semi, unloading the semi, right? And so getting in there and doing that day to day is really key. And I loved doing that. I had a huge passion for that. And I think the thing that really excites me about this next chapter is working with people to develop whatever it is that they want to do in their life. And I know that, one of the things that I want to do is have an impact on people's lives, right? So to help people come into their true potential and be able to service guests so that they have a great experience, but really to build those leaders. So more on that employee experience. I'd love to be working for a place that, comes into one of those top best places to work because of the environment and the culture and the brand and everything that is associated with it. So that's definitely on my list is going into a place, but then not just going into it and leading that team, but developing that team to make that company an all-star company of one of the top great places to work.
It sounds to me, based on what you've said, that you aren't just looking for a new job or another step on your career ladder. You're looking for a place with a mission that you agree with.
Yeah.
When it comes to personal development of staff and associates, when it comes to supporting the wishes, dreams, and desires of your guests, it's not just a job.
No, it's not just a job. It's a passion.
Yeah. Well, or maybe that's what you're looking for, truly is, I want a job in this industry that can engender passion in me.
Yeah. And I think, I feel very, very blessed that I fell along the path that I did, because what an incredible opportunity to take a company that started with 100 employees when I started there to grow it over 5,000 employees in North America at over 13 different locations. And now it's still growing. So in my role as business development, I was vice president of business development for about 3 years. And so we didn't have any projects that got started during that time. 3 of those projects I was working on have now since opened. So, that's kind of cool. So I feel very, very blessed to be a part of that story and legacy. And now it's on to another legacy. See where it takes you.
This episode of the Nonfiction Brand podcast is brought to you by Nonfiction Brandversity. It's a free Facebook group dedicated to the art and craft of personal branding, and we'd like to invite you. Just search Nonfiction Brandversity on Facebook and ask to join. You're in, guaranteed. I can't wait to see you on campus. Right. Well, I think you hinted at the fact that you've reached the point in your career where you want to do what you want to do. Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean you aren't going to take orders from the people who hire you, or they won't be giving you guidance, that you get to be the queen diva of the place.
Right.
But it means that, no, I'm going to have a little bit more control over who I am, what I do, and how I do it, based on who I am, what I do, and how I do it. Right.
Right. Right, which is your key for building your personal brand.
Exactly. Right? Which, of course, gets me back to asking you if you have done all the work to really identify who you are, what you do, and how you do it. It sounds like you've done a lot of it. Do you feel like you've nailed it down, or there's some holes or gaps that you feel need filling?
Well, you know what? I feel like it is always an evolution. Always. Right. Even in this time, you think you got it, and then you're like, maybe I should add that to it too, right? So I think that never stop learning, and never be like, I have loads of experience, but I also have loads to learn. You can't know everything. I think one of the greatest things that I had from my most current project is our CEO at that project was really good at identifying all of the people, all of the players in the game, and pulled to their strengths. So he looked at every single person's individual brand, what their strengths were, and then allowed them to do that. And that's so, so crucial. You never felt trapped or it was just free, and you felt more empowered every single step of the way, which was a vast difference from how I left that long-term career with the friction that was happening at the end there, right? So I think that that's really key. I remember at one point in time, and again, the last project was a hotel startup, new concept. And so we were getting into like plans and layouts and things like that. And somebody had recommended that we bring on a landscape architect. And somebody had mentioned, well, you got to be careful because those landscape architects are going to want to take over and tell you exactly what to do. And so we want to make sure we stifle them. And our CEO said, why would we do that? Why would you bring on an expert and then tell them they can't do what they want? Like, we don't know more than they know. Let's let them, we're going to bring somebody on. Let's let them excel and listen to them. So ultimately, that's the direction we went, because that's what the leaders said. So I don't know where I got onto that kind of a roundabout story, but important to not only be building your own personal brand, but to understand that everyone has their expertise. Everyone has special talents and gifts, and to be able to see those and utilize them is so key in anything that you're doing.
You may have been confused as to how you got on that story, but I'm not, because it really is, it's the answer to my question about have you truly identified who you are, what you do, and how you do it? And the answer may be, maybe it's not codified in cement or stone, but you've got this image in your head of, I want to be that type of leader, the one that opens people's minds up instead of shutting them down. I want to find them the position that they can really excel at. And I'm thinking of a book, what's his name? Good to Great. Well, whoever wrote that book. It's more about getting the right people on the bus and then figuring out what seat they belong in. And I agree with that 1,000,000,000%, because if you've got the wrong people on that bus, one of the analogies I've heard used is the idea of an aquarium. You add the wrong fish to an aquarium and that entire aquarium can die.
Right.
Very, very rapidly. So it's really critical to make sure you got the right fish in that aquarium, and that aquarium is on the right seat on the bus, according to the guy who wrote Good to Great. Okay, that went off the rails pretty fast, but I totally see what you're saying, which is I've seen someone who's doing it the right way, and I want to do that. So yeah, sometimes that vision you have to have is not something that you dream, but that you see someone else doing and say, I want to be like that. So I think that's probably a strong image for you to work toward, for sure.
And I think it's that you're always learning, and it's never really fully developed, right? As much as I had said before, you're never too old, you're never too young. You can do whatever you want to do, and it's mindset there. So it's asking yourself those self-reflective questions of who you are and how you're going to present yourself, how you're going to show up, and then knowing that each day you should learn something new.
Yeah, very much so. And we live in a golden age of learning where you can learn anything via the Google, via YouTube, via whatever you want, literally overnight. So one of my favorite stories from internet history is my understanding of the advent of Khan Academy, the really great science or STEM learning platform that is now global. It started because a guy named Khan had, I believe, a niece who was having trouble with some upper level math or whatever, trigonometry or something like that. And so he created YouTube videos to help her understand that upper level math. So here's this guy who's doing a solid for his niece or whoever it was, and he stumbles on something he's passionate about in terms of teaching, using technology to teach, and then making that teaching available to anybody, anywhere, all the time. And now, by the way, this guy is talking to Bill Gates and people like that about blowing up Khan Academy. It's a free university for everybody everywhere.
That's incredible.
How cool is that? He stumbled into what I would call his truth.
Right.
And it sounds like you're discovering your truth and you are determined to live your truth when it comes to becoming that inspirational visionary leader who still is going to be on the back of the truck when we got to get the gift shop open and the truck arrived late and we got to get t-shirts on the racks and suntan lotion out there. So come on, everybody, we're here until this thing is done. And you're doing it with a smile on your face, and you're probably making sure that everybody has food and water, and that there's this spirit of we can do itness that ultimately becomes this affirmation of this is what our brand is about.
Right.
Does it sound like you'd be doing something like that?
I think so. And I think that the other thing, and I had mentioned this last week, is really making sure to stay true to my own personal brand and to not lose connection no matter where I am going. If I'm in a new community, to be a part of that community and to have my personal brand be that representation of what the company is, but being a representation of me as a person. And I think that that's really important, just being authentic and showing up there as me, as everyone should, right? So I urge people that are, if you're in your current career right now and you're like, I love it here, I'm never leaving, this is the place I'm going to retire or whatever, stay connected because you don't know where you're going to be next, right?
Yeah, very much so. As you well know, and anybody who listens to this podcast knows, my big mantra is know who you are so you can be it. That's so key, is to truly know who you are. So when you get that phone call of a family member that's having health issues or something like that, you know, my first priority is to that family member, and everything will change because nothing is more important than that. Great. You've got a code for living then. You have a way of understanding who you are, what you do, and how you do it that extends beyond the, well, on Tuesdays, I do an Excel spreadsheet that downloads all the visitor numbers, and then I put it into this that goes there. That's bureaucratic crap. Who wants to be a bureaucrat? Some people do, actually. Well, and I will say this. Some people love to know that on Tuesday at 2:30, I download the numbers and I put it into an Excel spreadsheet. If you're that person, own it, be it, and understand it, because there will be a company that wants someone just like you. Unfortunately, that's not me, for sure. And it sounds like it's not Melissa Blettner either.
It is not.
If people wanted to connect with you to help you toward that general manager position at a destination resort or some type of resort property, how could they get a hold of you?
Easy on LinkedIn. And also I can be reached via email at melissa.blettner@gmail.
And Blettner is spelled Blettner.
Yeah, and one of the great things with getting married to a Blettner is there's not a lot of them out there. So when you search on LinkedIn, I come right up.
Well, you're talking to a Knudten, and believe me, that blessing is also a curse, because in my case, I have to spell it every single day of my life. But that's what happens when you're a brand of one. You know, even Cher had to spell her name for a while, right? Do you spell it Share, or is it, how do you spell that? Hey, Nonfiction Branders, did you know I wrote a book? Well, I did, and it's called Rotoma, the ROI of Social Media Top of Mind. I wrote it with my colleague Spencer X. Smith, and it's all about Rotoma, an acronym that means Return on Top of Mind Awareness. Best-selling author and NYU Stern School of Business professor Scott Galloway called it a book that starches the fluff from social media and helps managers allocate capital and find the unicorn among unicorns, ROI. And Chief Content Officer at Marketing Profs, Ann Handley, said, this isn't just a practical way to think about the return on social media, it's also a spot-on, accurate way to reframe your social efforts. Check out all the 5-star reviews on Amazon by searching Rotoma, ROTOMA. Pick up your copy today and start building your personal, professional, and small business brand the Rotoma way. Well, I wish you nothing but the best of luck. And again, if anybody knows anybody who needs a dynamic general manager type person for a destination resort or property around the United States, you need to look up Melissa Blettner, Blettner, on LinkedIn. Get in touch with her. And certainly, if you know of anybody in your network who might need someone who's dynamic, personable, and passionate, Melissa's the one you need to be talking to. So give them her name. Again, that's Melissa Blettner on LinkedIn. All right, well, that's going to wrap up this episode of the Nonfiction Brand Podcast. I'm DP Knudten for the Nonfiction Brand Podcast. I'd love for you to like, subscribe, refer, and most of all, review the podcast, because that will help others find it. And for the podcast, well, I just said my name, but she is
Melissa Blettner.
And I'll be talking to you next time. Bye-bye.